Being friendly is often seen as a strength, a trait that makes people approachable, likable, and easy to be around. It helps in building relationships, creating a positive environment, and fostering connections. However, there is a fine line between being friendly and becoming someone who is too accessible, too accommodating, and too eager to please. The moment friendliness turns into an inability to say no, to set boundaries, or to protect personal space, it stops being a strength and starts becoming a weakness that others can exploit. The world thrives on relationships, but not all relationships are built on mutual respect and fairness. Some people are always looking for those who will go the extra mile without questioning, who will agree to things even at their own expense, and who will always be available no matter how inconvenient it is for them. This is where knowing the difference between kindness and self-sacrifice becomes crucial. People who are naturally friendly often struggle with this realization because they believe that being available, accommodating, and giving will lead to stronger relationships and more appreciation. In reality, the opposite happens. When someone is too friendly, too agreeable, and too willing to go out of their way for others, they start losing their own identity in the process. Others begin to expect rather than appreciate their efforts, taking their kindness for granted. It shifts from admiration to assumption. And over time, it becomes exploitation rather than appreciation. The intention behind being friendly is often pure. But if there are no boundaries, it becomes an open invitation for others to take advantage. Setting limits does not mean being rude, cold, or distant. It simply means understanding that friendliness should not come at the cost of self-respect. Being kind and approachable should not mean allowing people to invade personal time, disrespect boundaries, or overstep in ways that make one uncomfortable. When friendliness is unchecked, it leads to situations where a person feels drained, undervalued, and sometimes even resentful. They give their time, energy, and effort without receiving the same level of respect in return. This is why defining the difference between being friendly and being overly accommodating is necessary. Self-worth is not determined by how much someone can give or how often they say yes. It is determined by their ability to stand firm, respect their own time and energy, and create a space where kindness is reciprocated rather than exploited. Many people hesitate to set boundaries because they fear being seen as unfriendly, difficult, or selfish. But the truth is, people respect those who respect themselves. When someone values their own space and time, others start valuing it too. The ones who truly appreciate a person will not mind if they say no occasionally, take time for themselves, or prioritize their own well-being. Those who get offended or upset when they are no longer able to take advantage are the ones who were never genuine in the first place. Not everyone deserves access to your time, energy, or emotions, yet many people give these away freely without realizing the impact. The ability to be kind and open is a beautiful quality, but when there are no limits on who gets access to your life, it can lead to exhaustion, disappointment, and even emotional burnout. The truth is, not everyone who enters your life comes with good intentions, and not everyone values the things you bring to the table. Some people take advantage of kindness, using it for their own benefit without giving anything in return. There is a common misconception that being available to everyone makes a person more likable, respected, or appreciated. But in reality, the more accessible someone is, the more they risk being taken for granted. People naturally place higher value on things that are rare, difficult to attain, or have clear boundaries. When someone is always available, always saying yes, and always prioritizing others over themselves, it becomes an expectation rather than something special. Over time, this leads to a dynamic where one person is constantly giving, while the other simply takes without even realizing the effort being put in. Selective access is a necessity for maintaining self-worth and emotional well-being. It is important to recognize that not everyone deserves a place in your inner circle. Some people only show up when they need something, disappear when you need them, or bring negativity instead of support. Giving these people unrestricted access drains energy and takes focus away from those who genuinely appreciate, respect, and reciprocate the kindness they receive. It is not about cutting people off completely, but rather about being intentional with who gets your time, attention, and trust. People who understand their own value do not allow just anyone into their space. They observe how others treat them, recognize patterns, and make conscious decisions about where to invest their energy. Friendliness should not mean allowing toxic relationships, one-sided friendships, or manipulative behavior to continue unchecked. Recognizing the signs of people who only take without giving back is a skill that protects emotional health and prevents unnecessary heartache. The fear of losing people or being seen as unfriendly often makes it difficult to set boundaries. However, true connections do not require constant availability or sacrifice. Real friends and genuine people understand personal limits and respect them. It is only those who benefit from a lack of boundaries who get upset when they are put in place. Learning to differentiate between those who add value to life and those who only drain energy is an essential part of self-respect. It is about choosing quality over quantity when it comes to relationships and surrounding oneself with people who uplift rather than exploit. By limiting access to only those who genuinely deserve it, emotional energy is preserved, self-worth is reinforced, and life becomes more fulfilling. Respect is something that should be earned, not something that is handed out freely to everyone. Many people believe that by being overly nice, accommodating, and agreeable, they will naturally gain the respect of others. However, respect does not come from being constantly available, always saying yes, or putting others' needs ahead of one's own. Instead, it comes from having principles, setting clear boundaries, and standing firm in one's beliefs and values. When respect is given too easily, without requiring anything in return, it often leads to being taken for granted rather than being valued. People place greater value on things they have to work for. When something is too easily accessible, it loses its significance. The same principle applies to respect. If a person gives their respect to everyone without discerning who actually deserves it, they diminish its importance. True respect is built over time through actions, consistency, and the way one carries themselves. It is not something that should be handed out to people who do not show it in return. Those who give their respect too freely often find themselves in situations where they are overlooked, undervalued, or even mistreated. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that being overly friendly will automatically earn them the respect of others. While kindness is important, it must be accompanied by self-respect. People can sense when someone is too eager to please, and unfortunately many take advantage of that. The moment someone realizes they can get away with disrespecting boundaries without consequences, they will continue to do so. This is why it is crucial to establish limits and hold people accountable for how they treat you. Respect is closely tied to self-worth. When a person values themselves, they do not tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or inconsiderate behavior. They make it clear that their time and energy are valuable, and they do not allow others to take advantage of their kindness. This does not mean being rude or unkind. It simply means expecting the same level of respect that is given. People who demand respect through their actions and presence naturally command it from those around them. In contrast, those who constantly seek validation and approval by being overly friendly often end up disappointed. They assume that their willingness to always be there for others will lead to appreciation, but instead it can create an imbalance in relationships. When respect is not a requirement, people become complacent and appreciation fades. Instead of being seen as a strong individual with principles, a person who gives too much respect too easily may be perceived as someone who lacks self-confidence or is desperate for acceptance. Respect is a two-way street. It is not something that can be forced, begged for, or expected without effort. It is earned through consistency, self-assurance, and an understanding of one's own worth. Those who recognize the importance of respect ensure that it is mutual in all relationships, whether personal or professional. Saying no is one of the most powerful forms of self-respect, yet many people struggle with it. The fear of disappointing others, being judged, or seeming unkind often leads to saying yes even when it is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or against one's best interests. However, constantly agreeing to things out of obligation rather than genuine willingness can lead to exhaustion, frustration, and even resentment. Learning to say no is not about being difficult or rude. It is about valuing personal time, energy, and priorities without feeling guilty. People who have difficulty saying no often find themselves overwhelmed, overcommitted, and emotionally drained. They put others' needs before their own, thinking that this will make them more likable or respected. But in reality, always saying yes does not necessarily earn respect. It often leads to being taken for granted. When people realize that someone will always agree to their requests, they may continue to push boundaries, expecting more without considering how it affects the other person. This cycle can be emotionally exhausting and can lead to feelings of being used or unappreciated. One of the biggest misconceptions is that saying no is selfish. In reality, it is an act of self-care and a sign of confidence. Prioritizing personal well-being does not mean neglecting others. It simply means making choices that align with what is truly important. Every time a person says yes to something they do not want to do, they are essentially saying no to themselves, their goals, their peace, and their time. People who respect themselves understand that their energy is valuable and that not every request deserves their immediate agreement. Establishing boundaries through the ability to say no is crucial in both personal and professional relationships. In friendships, always saying yes can lead to one-sided relationships where one person is constantly giving while the other is only receiving. In the workplace, an inability to say no can result in being overworked, underappreciated, and expected to take on tasks beyond what is reasonable. Whether it is social obligations, work responsibilities, or personal favors, having the confidence to say no when necessary ensures that one's own needs are not constantly sacrificed for the sake of others. People who set boundaries by saying no often gain more respect, not less. They are seen as individuals who value their time and have a clear sense of self-worth. Those who truly appreciate them will understand and respect their decisions rather than expecting endless availability. On the other hand, those who react negatively to a simple no were likely benefiting from a lack of boundaries and were never truly concerned about mutual respect in the first place. It is important to remember that saying no does not require lengthy explanations or justifications. A simple, firm response is enough. People who master the ability to say no without guilt free themselves from unnecessary stress, create healthier relationships, and maintain a strong sense of self-respect. In a world where social validation often seems more important than personal well-being, many people feel the need to surround themselves with as many friends, connections, and acquaintances as possible. They believe that the more people they have around them, the more valuable or important they are. However, quantity does not equate to quality when it comes to relationships. Having a large number of friends or connections does not necessarily mean having strong, meaningful, or supportive relationships. What truly matters is the depth, trust, and sincerity of the bonds that are formed. Many people fall into the trap of maintaining relationships that add little to no value to their lives simply because they do not want to be alone. They entertain friendships that drain them emotionally, keep in touch with people who do not reciprocate their efforts, and invest time in relationships that feel more like obligations than genuine connections. This happens because they have been conditioned to believe that being surrounded by people, even if those people do not truly care for them, is better than having only a few close and trustworthy individuals. However, this mindset leads to emotional exhaustion and a lack of true fulfillment. Strong, meaningful relationships are built on mutual respect, trust, and genuine care. They are not based on convenience, superficial interactions, or the need to maintain appearances. People who prioritize quality over quantity in their relationships focus on building deeper connections with a select few rather than spreading themselves too thin among many. They understand that real support does not come from having a long list of contacts, but from having people who genuinely care, listen, and stand by them during both good and bad times. The problem with maintaining too many casual or surface-level relationships is that they often lack reliability. When someone surrounds themselves with people who are only there for fun, convenience, or personal gain, they may find themselves alone in times of difficulty. It is in moments of struggle that the true nature of relationships is revealed. Those who are there only when things are easy quickly disappear when challenges arise. On the other hand, those who truly value a person will remain present, offering support, encouragement, and genuine care. This is why it is important to identify and nurture relationships that are based on authenticity rather than social obligation. Investing time and energy in the right people leads to deeper connections, emotional security, and a greater sense of belonging. It allows for open and honest communication, mutual growth, and a feeling of being truly understood. People who value quality over quantity in relationships are also less likely to experience disappointment, betrayal, or emotional exhaustion because they are surrounded by individuals who genuinely appreciate and respect them. True happiness in relationships does not come from the number of people who know your name or the amount of attention you receive. It comes from the comfort of knowing that the people in your life are there because they truly care. Choosing depth over breadth in relationships leads to stronger connections, greater emotional well-being, and a more fulfilling life. Seeking approval from others is a natural human instinct, but when it becomes the driving force behind decisions, actions, and self-worth, it turns into a limitation. Many people fall into the trap of constantly seeking validation, believing that their value depends on how others perceive them. They adjust their behavior, suppress their true thoughts, and compromise their own needs just to be liked, accepted, or praised. However, this pursuit of external approval often leads to frustration, insecurity, and a loss of self-identity. True confidence comes from within, not from the opinions of others. People who rely too much on approval often struggle with self-doubt. They hesitate before making decisions, second-guess their choices, and worry about how they will be judged. This creates a cycle where they're never truly satisfied because they're always looking for reassurance from others. No matter how much validation they receive, it is never enough because their confidence is built on something external and unstable. The moment they face criticism or rejection, their sense of self-worth crumbles. This is why it is essential to develop confidence that is not dependent on outside opinions. When someone prioritizes their own confidence over approval, they take control of their own life. They make choices based on what truly matters to them, rather than on what will make them more likable. They stop worrying about pleasing everyone and start focusing on what makes them happy, fulfilled, and aligned with their values. This shift in mindset leads to greater self-assurance, stronger decision-making skills, and the ability to stand firm in one's beliefs, even when others disagree. One of the biggest challenges in letting go of the need for approval is the fear of rejection. People worry that if they stop seeking validation, they will be left out, disliked, or criticized. However, true confidence does not come from avoiding rejection. It comes from embracing individuality and understanding that not everyone needs to agree or approve. The most successful and self-assured individuals are those who stay true to themselves, regardless of how others perceive them. They recognize that approval is temporary, but self-respect lasts a lifetime. When a person shifts their focus from approval to confidence, they also attract the right kind of people into their lives. Instead of surrounding themselves with those who only like them for their willingness to please, they build relationships based on mutual respect and authenticity. People admire those who have the courage to be themselves, and this kind of genuine confidence is far more powerful than any approval that comes from trying to fit in. Choosing confidence over approval allows a person to live on their own terms. It frees them from the constant pressure to meet expectations that do not align with who they truly are. It enables them to set boundaries, express their opinions without fear, and make decisions that serve their growth and happiness. The moment someone stops seeking approval and starts embracing their own worth, they become unstoppable.